So many looking for a new mid-range iPhone may be cross-shopping between the iPhone 16e and the iPhone 15, and whilst there is a $100 price difference between these devices if you buy from Apple directly, do be aware you can find the 15 for less on the refurbished and used markets. And so which should you buy? Beginning with the design, the 16e may be part of the iPhone 16 series, but let you guys in on a secret. This phone is actually just a repackaged iPhone 14, and so we have flat sides here and a notch. Whereas the 15 has the new design language the 16 has, with rounder corners that honestly don't make a massive difference, but yes, they are slightly comfy in the hand. But more importantly, we have thinner bezels and the fancy dynamic island. Now I know I did criticize the island when it released back with the 14 Pro, and it's still not a must-have feature by any means, but I can't lie, Apple's baking in some really nice animations with the island. Look how awesome name drop looks, for example. I'm a sucker for some sick animations, and I feel like it's slowly being integrated further and further into the UI, and so whilst you can live with the notch right now, it will continue to become more and more dated as developers play around with the island for their applications. Moving on to another aesthetic change, the 16e only comes in black and white. It's a very boring iPhone. The regular 15 may have pastel shades, which is not my preference. I much prefer punchier colors, but regardless, there's more color options and is a way more exciting looking iPhone. Both do share the same USB-C port with USB 2 speeds, but the 16e does have an action button, which is a customizable button you can configure to launch various functions, including visual intelligence now, which makes camera control on the other 16 models even more useless. Materials wise, these phones are identical, the same ceramic shield display on the front that yes is very strong, but also the air can scratch it, so get yourself a screen protector anyway. And you also have aluminium on the sides, which dents pretty easily, but to be fair, it is at least lightweight. Both are IP68 rated, by the way, so if you accidentally drop your phone in the toilet for whatever reason, you should be fine. Both support crash detection and satellite support, so yes, these phones can save your lives, and Apple's definitely going to flex these in the marketing and manipulate you into buying these phones. Moving on to the display, we once again have some minor changes between these devices. So as I said before, the display on the 15 is slightly larger because of slimmer bezels. It doesn't make a massive difference to be fair, but you do have the island that gives the phone a nice visual refresh. But that's not the major upgrade, guys. No, the big upgrade is 1000 nits of brightness for typical use, 1600 nits for HDR content, and a whopping 2000 nits of brightness outdoors. The outdoor brightness especially is a game changer. Now yes, I live in the UK, so we only get sunlight once or twice a year, but regardless, when there is a bit of sun, the higher brightness definitely comes in clutch, and before you say it, I actually don't notice the phone overheating as such when it's pumping out 2000 nits of brightness, so this is a useful upgrade with the 15. The 16e does have a fine display, and both are 60Hz, but 800 nits of brightness outdoors isn't going to be fantastic. Performance-wise, we actually do have a big difference between these devices because the 16e has the latest and greatest, offering the A18 with 8 gigs of RAM. Funnily enough, this is not the exact same A18 you get in the iPhone 16. The 16e does have one less GPU core, but regardless, on paper, this is an upgrade over the A16 with 6 gigs of RAM in the iPhone 15. The thing is though, that's really only noticeable on paper. When it comes to data usage, you're not going to tell much of a difference between these phones. Now obviously there will be some edge cases. If you love yourself some Genshin Impact, you may notice the 16e with the additional performance does play that game better, but the games I play are Subway Surf and 8 Ball Pool, which of course run perfectly fine even on 5-year-old iPhones. And so yes, I really see no difference. Both are very solid as one would expect. Apple Intelligence is really the biggest difference here, since the 15 cannot run all of these new fancy AI features, but as someone who's been using Apple Intelligence for the last few months, it does not make a massive difference, and the features they've launched so far have been kinda useless. Obviously that's not always going to be the case, we're yet to get the next gen Siri, and AI is going to continue becoming a bigger part of iOS, but as it stands right now, it's not a must-have feature. The only real advantage with A18 is the longer support. But you know what's not useless? Subscribing to this channel. I would greatly appreciate it, and it would bring you the latest about Apple right to subscription box, so please consider it. Join the Saranbyte gang now. Moving to the camera, we have similar main cameras on both of these. It's 48 megapixels, which is a lot of pickles, though of course the shots have been down to 24 megapixels. However, even then, for the pixel peepers out there, you will notice these new phones generally produce crispier shots with more detail compared to older iPhones. But the main reason I was so excited for the 16e to get this 48 megapixel upgrade was because it allows for the 2x telephoto crop. Now, Apple kind of falsely advertises this as a 2-in-1 fusion camera. It is not a 2-in-1 system, it's still only one camera, but at the same time, because the sensor is so massive, the 2x crop actually is as good as a dedicated telephoto. So if you're going to be zooming into things pretty often, I'm glad the 16E and the 15 offer this. They also have the same Smart HDR5 support and last gen photographic styles, and so for the most part they do produce very similar shots, though the 15 sensor does include sensor shift stabilization. Video is also solid on both iPhones, as is the case for most iPhones. The front-facing camera is exactly the same on both the 15 and 16E, and they do the job for the most part. They have autofocus, so yeah, you do get crispy shots. The 15 of course does have the advantage of an ultra-wide, which gives you zoomed out shots you simply can't achieve on the 16E, and you also get next-gen portraits on the 15. Now the portrait mode is not radically different, it does pretty similar shots for the most part, but the 15 automatically collects the data needed for portrait modes, and so you can now turn most photos into portrait in post. And this is super clutch, guys. I no longer have to manually put the phone in portrait mode. The phone just does everything for me, which is very convenient, and the 16E lacking this is a real shame. You also don't get cinematic mode or action mode on the 16E, which the 15 offers. However, the 16E does have audio mix similar to the iPhone 16 models, and this feature is pretty nice for isolating my voice in a noisy environment. Now, another key difference between these phones is the modem inside. The 15 does use a Qualcomm modem like most other modern iPhones, but the 16E gets Apple's first in-house modem called the C1. The speeds are slightly worse on the 16E because it's a first generation modem, and especially if you're in the US, the 16 does lack millimeter wave, whereas the 15 does include it. But honestly, it doesn't make a huge difference at the end of the day. Both have Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.3 support, but I think the biggest connectivity miss with the 16E is a lack of a U1 or U2 chipset in this. The ultra-wideband chipset can come in handy for some features like precision finding for Find My, and also gives you a superior AirTag experience, and so it's a shame the 16E does not have this. If you're wondering if Face ID is any faster on the 15 because of the island, no, that's not the case. Both are very similar in this aspect, and the same goes for the speakers and mics. Here's a comparison for you guys. So here's a mic test on the iPhone 16E, let me know how this sounds, and here's a mic test on iPhone 15. There should not really be a difference, these perform about the same. Coming to battery life, that new C1 and a larger battery does mean the 16E does offer considerably better endurance than the iPhone 15. Apple on their site claims 16E offers 26 hours of video playback compared to 20 hours on the 15, and 90 hours of audio playback compared to 80 hours on the 15. That does make a big difference in terms of regular usage, and is probably the biggest reason you might want to consider the 16E, because many care about battery life and it will be something you notice every single day. For its size, the 16E's endurance is actually insane. Charging wise, both charge up to 50% in 30 minutes with a 20-watt adapter, which is not the fastest in the world, though I'm not too fussed about the lack of fast wide charging because these phones do get you through the day pretty comfortably, and you're likely going to be charging these overnight anyway, in which case you won't need ludicrous charging speeds. However, what does bother me with the 16E is the lack of MagSafe, which I did not expect considering nearly every iPhone since the 12 has included this. Only the SE3 and the 16E has missed out on MagSafe, and so the lack of magnets here means you cannot use a wide range of accessories you can on the 15, and yes, I'm aware you can get MagSafe cases for the 16E that do have that magnetic ring, but regardless, you don't get the faster MagSafe charging on the 16E because it's not built in. So that's all the main differences, and if I'm being honest guys, unless you absolutely want the better endurance the 16E has, or the advantages of the A18 like longer support or Apple Intelligence, most consumers should just buy the 15. The 15 has a better display, better cameras, MagSafe and the ultra-wideband chipset, and as I said at the beginning of the video, you can actually find the 15 for less on the used and refurbished market. I know going used or refurbished means that the battery health can vary, but considering the 15 isn't that old, I think you should still consider that phone because it is cheaper and it does have some key advantages. Of course, if you don't want to buy refurbished for whatever reason, and you're only considering buying from Apple or other official retailers, I would say save the $100 and get the 16E, but again, the 15 is available for less from third parties, and with programs such as Amazon Renewed, you get 90 days to return the product if there's any issues. I'll leave links below. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.